Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the ACN Show. I'm Russ, one of your hosts, and we're joined today with Michael from Locked In and Eric from Spindat. Nice.
It's like a bad 90s TV show right now.
Right, yeah. So if you guys aren't familiar with ACN, we give you unsponsored, unfiltered hot takes on the bike industry, drops, all that good stuff. But today we're going to tackle the topic of beginner cyclists. You know, because of COVID and many other reasons, a lot of people are turning to bikes. So we're going to give you our expert tips on how to get into cycling with we're experts, right? That's at least that's what we're claiming.
If you do something for long enough, you become an expert at it. Yes.
If you have a YouTube channel about it, definitely an expert.
Yeah. If you have one video or 1,000 videos, you're an expert. Yeah.
I mean, I've been beginning cycling for a long time, so I'm very, very good at it.
Cool. Before we jump into the topic of the day, let's talk about channel updates. Let's start with Michael. Michael, what's been up on your channel so far?
So I just posted my Redshifts shock stop seat post review. So I've been riding that consistently for quite a while. Finally, with my Cobalt Warhawk bike, like monster gravel bike build series that I finished, finally got a 27.2 bike. That's a standard round post. So I can finally test that thing. It's been amazing. It's crazy how much more comfortable that thing is. And I've been tweaking and testing it a lot. I mentioned in my video my kind of recommended setup tips because I think theirs were a little bit on the softer side. And then for next week, I have my WTB Ranger review. So for somebody who can clear more than a 47 in like a WTB Sendero, the Ranger is kind of like its big fat brother in a 2.0. And so I have that tire review coming and a bunch more stuff on the horizon.
Cool. Yeah, I watched your review on the suspension seat post, and I found the similar results. It's cool that you can use that extra spring. So if you do like it a little bit on the stiffer side, you can get rid of the pedal bob. But pretty cool. You know, it's not something I thought I'd like, and sounds like you were pleasantly surprised as well.
Yeah, there was one last thing I totally came to unfortunately after the review was already edited and posted. I noticed the bob was worse at higher PSI on the road.
Oh, interesting.
So if I ran slightly low on the PSI on the road, the seat was fine. It was really strange. So it was this weird kind of balance that I've had to figure out, where I can go a little bit softer than I would normally, and depending on my tire pressure, that's where I would kind of feel it. It was very strange. And that was something, again, I literally figured out last ride, because usually on the ride we start, I'm aired up to go out to the trail. So I'm a little higher, and it was kind of bobbing a little bit. And then on the way back, because I'm lower PSI because we've hit the trail already and I'm not going to sit there and pump back up, I was like, oh, it feels smoother. Weird, and after that I was like, oh man, this is I kind of get it. It's weirdly better with a little bit lower PSI.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Eric, what's been happening on your channel? Do you weld any other chair parts to bikes?
No, I have not touched my welder. It would be incredibly irresponsible to weld in this shed. The amount of gasoline and oil that is absorbed into the wood floor here, not good. I'm afraid to grind stuff in here because it's very dry, very dry.
Right. Yeah.
But that day that we got called out for being drop bar elitist has stuck with me to today, and I was like, man, I need to
by it.
Yeah, I was like, how do I solve this? I know, Russ, you put some bars on the Velo Orange, right?
Yep.
That's what it was. And I was
Orange Eric.
I was like, I know what will be even worse. And it's like my old road race frame. I'll put flappers on it, and then like no one can say that I'm like a drop bar elitist.
Yeah.
Right.
So I did that.
23
And,
C's, baby. That's it.
It's got 26s. 26s on it. But
Okay.
it's cool.
Clutch. Yeah. I saw it.
It's like the longest stem ever. And like I forgot, like I was like, man, this bike is like pretty wild for one. Also, it's carbon, so I don't have to wave at anybody when they go by. So
That's what happens when you get a bike.
Yeah. That's the next step after being a beginner. Like you're happy to see everybody, and then you become very pretentious when you get your next new bike. The flat bars make it harder to do that, but I still didn't wave to anybody. So
yeah, nice. Let's see. So on my channel, what did we do? I had a couple live streams. We did a live stream with Roland from Reload. He was he's been making messenger bags for over 20 years, which is just incredible, back in the day. And we had this interesting discussion about what the weirdest thing he ever carried as a messenger. And it was an eyeball.
It's always medical.
It's always medical.
It's always medical.
Wow.
So
That's a lot.
The beat where the dispatch was contracted with a hospital, so he's carried heart valves, eyeballs, everything. Just interesting stuff.
That's really common in the messenger world. That like people are like, yeah, I delivered a liver. You're like, what? And they're like, yeah, like in a cooler, like, and then you just fly across town. I'm like, but you.
Yeah, he was saying that. You remember the first time he had to carry urine samples, and it was literally like test tubes, some styrofoam ice, but in like a clear plastic baggie, no other protection. And at first he was like super ginger about it, and then by the end of it, he was just like tossing it in.
He's like,
with the breath.
He put that next to the Chick-fil-A.
over the shoulder, tossing it into the bag.
Right.
Pea shot.
Yeah. It's interesting because like documents were used to be a big thing. And since everything's gone digital, that's less of something that a lot of current messengers deliver apparently, and a lot of them have been doing food service, so food delivery, and I guess imagine like eyeballs still something you have to
hard to do that through the computer.
Yeah.
Doable.
Yeah. So was there? We're gonna go really quickly through the new. I don't think there was anything new that I spotted. Was there anything that popped up in your guys' feed worth talking about?
I mean, obviously they've they know we're doing this today, and they're a little late to the game because it was this morning. Trek did their new Imonda, but that doesn't really pertain much to us. I think it's weirdly sad how like every bike kind of is updating the same way. Like the Imonda was a lightweight climbing bike. Now it's a slightly aero bike. Like all road bikes are kind of becoming. So like it's nothing new. It's just new. And also the logo got huge. So that's about it. Like it's massive. It's all like the top to the bottom of the whole aero down to it just says Trek. Like from the chain, like the edge of where the chain is all the way to like the head tube.
Yeah. So it's like the Madone with the with its logo.
Yeah, huge. So
that's fine. I don't hate that. But.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying like it's just everybody like when they're coming out with something like that, it's all essentially kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I agree. I can't imagine why any road bike manufacturer would even consider putting out a new model this year anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like they have no way to show it in a race setting.
Sure.
No one's racing it right now. Like
people still trying to Everest though. That's still a
true.
Thing, so.
That's a thing.
But do you need that truncated aero down tube to Everest?
Hey, that 18 seconds you save doing 350 watts is what they put it at. I'm just gonna put that out there. Like they're like, oh, at 350 watts on the flats, you'll save a minute over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, but like.
So
I can't do 350 watts for more than like 10 seconds. Like, come on. Like, that's not going to translate to me at all. Yeah. Give me the 200 on a good day wattage.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want to see. Am I going to get an aero benefit of that? And if it is it going to be more than like 0.47 seconds? Because if it is, maybe I'll buy it. Like
even then.
even then.
Cool. So let's talk about some of the articles for the day that tie in today's topic. And this is an interesting one. This is from Brain, or Bicycle Retailer. This is kind of the bike industry news here, mostly targeted towards your IBD, your bike shops. And what they report is that even despite what's going on, bikes are actually doing pretty well. So as long as they've been measuring kind of how much the bike industry as a whole has been their revenue per month, this past April I think has been a blockbuster. Typically sales fall between 550 and 575 million, but for the first time since they've actually been measuring, it's broken it's broken $1 billion. So $1 billion month for the bike industry.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think not very often you hear the old B before anything to do with anything cycling, like other than bicycle.
I do think one thing that's been kind of telling is what people have been buying. So a lot of kind of children's bikes, accessories grew. I think what's notable here is bike baskets are up by 85%.
Hey.
But also, in the analysis, I thought this was interesting. I mean, this jives with my channel. Far too long, the cycling industry has been solely focused on the pinnacle athlete, but these results show that a broader family and beginner focus can reap gains. So this is a silver lining. I don't know that the bike industry or bike brands will take this data and pivot right away, but interesting to note. I don't know if you guys saw the graph here, but it shows.
Look at us with our production value graphs.
I know.
Science. Look at this science.
Take that GCN. We saw
That's
the
right.
GCN live stream. They don't have
That's right.
graphs.
Yeah.
Graphs.
And they might have been slightly out of focus. Look at us.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, look at us.
Yeah, look at us.
But looking at what's sold here, stationary bikes, not a surprise. A lot of people went to Zwift during peak pandemic. I wish they'd kind of define these categories a little bit better. Like, what the hell is traditional?
Obviously,
old 10-speed bikes.
It's whenever you say it's a 10-speed, yeah, exactly, yeah. It's all 10-speed, baby. It's an 87 or it's a 2009. It's the same. It's 10-speed.
Like lifestyle and leisure. Like, what the hell does that mean?
It's comfort bikes and beach cruisers.
Yeah, I would say. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so then how would that be different from transit and fitness? So
that's a hybrid.
Flat bar road bike hybrid.
Dad bikes. Dad bike section. We can rephrase this. I mean, what website is this from? The Bicycle Retailer. They can hit us up if they need some like journalism rewrites.
We can help.
Yeah, we can be sponsored by them. It's fine.
We can consult.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't put anything up for dual suspension mountain bikes, but obviously, that's pinnacle athlete type stuff.
Yeah,
anyway.
pinnacle. Yeah. Well, yeah. Because your hardtail is essentially to go down to go down the street with.
We sold a lot of bikes like 29er, lower cost 29er mountain bikes as hybrids. Like that's what people wanted, and we're like, this will do that. It has a spot for a rack. You can do that with it. So it's not surprising to see that number up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another kind of interesting quote that I'm going to highlight here is continued growth will require them not only to have product in stock, but to focus on new riders' basic needs, such as how to fix a flat tire, locating a family-friendly trail ride. Addressing these basics right now has immeasurable ROI, and the industry should be laser-focused on servicing these new riders. So what do you guys think of that?
I think that was a thing with my old bike shop that we used to do once a month, maintenance clinics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a long time ago, when Performance was still around, RIP. And yeah, we would do one was usually a flat repair clinic. And then the next month would be basic cleaning and maintenance. And we just rotate that. It was just one mechanic would volunteer, and every month or every other week or something like that, we would do one or the other, because that's essentially what everyone's going to come to learn. And we hope that every month you're going to get X amount of new clients that they're going to want to attend that. So I think that's great. I think that's realistically like the two big staples of when you get into riding is just learning how to change a flat if you're not, even if you're tubeless or not, how to change a flat. And two, just like wipe your bike down every once in a while and put some, clean and lubricate the chain. Like that's kind of it. Like anything else, bring it to a bike shop. It's fine. But like,
I think another thing that they point out here, which I agree with, that you don't typically think about is locating a family-friendly trail to ride.
True.
Or just directing someone where to ride their bicycle after they purchased it. I've gone to many bike shops when we travel, and I'll ask them, okay, hey, I'm looking for like a 30-mile gravel loop. Do you have any? And they're like, check my Strava. And like, unless, you have a Strava account or all that stuff is paywalled now. So like not having like maps or just simple kind of customer facing information. So when people buy a product, they have a place to use it. That's a huge gap that I think is missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fine. We used to, like, where I'm at, a lot of cruise ships come in. When I was working at the shop downtown, there's a guy who came in and said something very interesting where he was like, anytime I go somewhere new, when you want to know where stuff is or how to get somewhere, the best place to go is the local small bike shop, because those guys know how to get around. And he was asking about stuff like that and like where to eat and stuff. And I gave him the answers for the stuff I like to go to. I don't know if those were what he wanted to hear, but he's like, at least you had an answer. Like, most places are like, oh, I don't know what you like. And I'm like a grumpy, bike shop employee. So I just give him a quick answer. And I'm like, I hope this guy goes away soon. Turns out he was great. It's when you work at a shop, it's hard. You have to, I guess this could be part of the beginner thing, but like you're underpaid, you work a lot, you're working with like bad bikes all the time, you answer the same questions a lot. Give the guy at the shop like 2 minutes to warm up to you before you get his real personality.
Oh yeah.
Because I'm a very outgoing person and I hated everybody who walked through the door. until I could talk to them and be like, okay, you're all right.
All right.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I definitely think like bike shops, when we used to travel and go to lots of places, bike shops were the place I would go to and ask about where the best cheap food is. Because
everybody who works there is poor.
Because you basically, it's saltine and water for the diet for the bike shop employees. So anything.
Like when people tip us, we go to this bar and get French fries and beer. So
exactly. Yeah, PBRs and French fries. Like that's a good day. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to know in the comments, YouTube comments, have you bought a bike recently? Has the bike shop added any kind of additional service, like where to ride, or I know kind of maintenance classes might be kind of tough, but I'd love.
Hang on, you got to highlight Don's comment. I'm sorry, that is the best thing to ever do. Yes,
there you go.
Girl.
There you go.
Yes.
See,
every time that would happen. If you need your bike fixed fast, same day, like pizza and beer, that's like sliding like your like maitre d' or your host like a 20 to get you in like the front of the list for that restaurant. Like that is the best thing. A 6-pack and a pizza will literally get your bike done probably in 30 minutes or less, unless it's
like it could.
It
could be as simple as like, here you go, and you're like, okay, let's rebuild this wheel now.
Yeah, exactly. Like I will re-nipple that whole wheel right now. Like by the time the beer is done, your wheel will be done. Like, that is the best. That is the best way to do it. Trust me, it is the only way. It's
right.
You get people come in and they bring a bike and they want to go ride that afternoon. They don't understand for whatever reason. They think it's easy, but it's like, sir or madam, if this was that easy, like you'd be able to do it. But we have other people and we're servicing the community here.
There wouldn't be 40 bikes here in front of
you. Exactly. And so, but the pizza and the beer gets your bike like pushed way to the front. So always a good thing.
More important than, or more valuable than Bitcoin, in your eyes?
Oh yes.
Guaranteed.
Oh
Yeah,
yes.
can't eat Bitcoin.
If any bike shop employee has Bitcoin, I'd be shocked.
They've got one. They've got one Bitcoin
Yeah,
that they're
collectively between all the employees, they have one coin.
Yeah, I'd love to know if any shops have been doing like virtual maintenance, like Zoom's a thing, virtual conferencing. Like, is there, because I think that would be a pretty cool way to disseminate that information in the comfort of people's homes, have something that's convenient for them. I don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking of that as we were talking about this. I'm like, I wonder if we could do like even on our own channels or here, like a live stream that it's like, here's how to change tube. But the nice part about being at the shop was you could maybe, I never did clinics like that. I should have, but it wasn't my shop, so I didn't care. But like, when you did them, Mike, did you provide something for people to try it with? Like,
I mean, it depended on the shop experience and what was, and basically how many people showed up.
Right.
So what I would tell people, because I kind of like, not like ran it, but I would just suggest things.
Right.
And so what I would say at performance, I would just say like, feel free to bring your front wheel, and I would help. The mechanic would do it, and then I would kind of float in the crowd, of just like, hey, put your, take your tire lever. Oh, it's backwards, or it's it's like turn it. No, the hook needs to go this way, or whatever. So I would do that and kind of walk around and help. I'm going to kind of do that, and it was kind of every step was just like that's why we did it very, very simple, because the maintenance ones were nice because no one's gonna. We told everybody like, please don't bring all your bikes in. We don't have enough bike racks for that. Please do not bring your crusty old bike in. We're gonna show you how to do it. Videotape it on your phone. Do whatever you want. Like this is pre-YouTube stuff, and that's all we said. But for the tire change, I literally said, bring your front wheel and bring your tire lever, and that's it. And we'll have pumps, and we're just gonna show you how to like debeat it and then rebeat it. Like that's all you really need to learn. And then a couple of tricks to like put your new tube in. So we went through the motions for that one. And yes, virtually you're going to lose that interaction of like, you really have to just go slow. I think it can be done. I think we could all do it.
We should do it. Who wants to see a virtual something from ACN? Maybe like how to weld chairs to your bike.
Yeah.
We can do that.
We can do that.
It's just expensive.
If you want to send a chair, Eric's P.O. box is what?
Right. Not the whole chair, just like that. A little piece.
Yeah.
Enough to cut away some.
Right. So Benjamin Smith here says his local bike co-op is doing virtual support. That's pretty awesome. I'd love to know which, where in the country or where in the world your co-op is. Alex here says making a rack out of the chair parts.
Wow,
would be
that would
cool.
be Eric. I swear to God, you better make a rack. I'll review it. Me and Russell both review it. Ship it to us. We'll review it.
It could be done. Anything can be done.
It's going to be called the Spin Dat Booger Weld. That's going to be like
it's not going to be pretty. It'll probably just be made out of strapped steel, like not tubing. It'll just be like thin, like terribly cut.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll hold like 30 pounds.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's
okay.
all right.
So let's look at this next article. I'm going to embiggen this so people can see. This one is in Bicycling Magazine, written by Eben Weiss. Do you guys know Eben in Bike Snob, New York, NYC?
I know Bike Snob.
Yeah, that was his, Eben's his real name. Bike Snob is his nom de guerre. And he talks about, I think the subheading here pretty much sums it up. We can do this, offer riders a new spare tube or a spare tube and not a critique of their sock height.
Yes.
I think as bike lovers, bike enthusiasts, it is possible to be a little too enthusiastic and overwhelm people with information or the kind of the impulse to teach people too much too soon, maybe when they don't want it. So it is, I think the challenge for more experienced cyclists is to kind of temper that need. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think we're guilty of that in this video already. Like a little bit, like just even just talking about being a grouchy bike shop mechanic, I feel like could have a like a negative effect a little bit. And then
Right.
like right as I said, I was like, geez, maybe I shouldn't. But that's the way it is. But no, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about the Illuminati rules before. I remember reading those in like my first year of road riding, and I was like, I'm gonna live by these and make everybody cry. And I did for like a year and a half, and then one day I was like, maybe this is too much, and I sort of slowed down on it a little bit.
Yeah. So here's a great quote. There's no such thing as the wrong, quote unquote, wrong gear. Any gear that's moving you forward is the right one.
I love that.
And yeah. I think we can all generally agree. I like this. The first step in welcoming new riders is learning something called patience. You won't find
that was great.
You won't find a metric for that in your Garmin, so you're gonna have to go by feel. There's no patience meter, unfortunately.
Yeah. Geez, now I just want to read the whole article, like as it's sitting there. It is so good.
Yeah. And I think it's fascinating. There is a bike boom going on. I think more by circumstances than what the industry itself is doing. So it's this kind of make or break moment if the bike industry can really capitalize on it. And I think when you look at this article paired with the one from Brain that we looked at, I mean, it's clear, at least in my read, that the way forward is to kind of really target all these new riders and make cycling more more inviting to new people. So, I don't know. Any other thoughts on this article?
Yeah, I think the big thing is for me that I've always been a big advocate of is if I'm assuming most of the people who are watching this live and maybe watch this later, if no matter what like level of cycling you want to call yourself or like how long you've been riding or whatever, like for me, anytime I ride by somebody who's on the side of the road, I always ask, hey, you okay? Every single time, no matter if they look like an elite racer with some triathlon bike in a skin suit to somebody who looks like they're half drunk coming home from the bar, I'm going to ask them like, are you okay? Because I want their ride to be as enjoyable as possible. And if this is their first ride back on the bike, you have no idea. You want to keep them riding. And so you want that experience to be enjoyable. And I mentioned a crazy experience on an old live stream about the girl with no rim tape, and she would have not made that charity ride if I didn't ask her like, hey, you good? And she was one of the few, which I can count on like one hand, like times where somebody actually says like, no, I need help. Like that rarely is heard, but I ask anyway, And so I think that's the big thing for me is if you're riding and you see somebody that's on the side, ask if they're all right. Because it might just be advice or that, hey, you got to help them put that last little bit of tire on or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, and all I say is just like, get a helmet. Like, that's it. Like, those are my two rules. Like, just please wear a helmet. And like, because I see people like on these bikes, on these trails that I'm scared to ride, that I'm like, I'm going to send it and just taco over the bars or something's going to happen. And you see this dude in just like a bandana going down in his flip flops, just like waiting for, something to happen. I'm just like, dude, just like save yourself. And then for anybody who ever came into my shop was like, oh, well, helmets look dumb. I'm like, yeah, but like brain damage doesn't look very good either. Like, like you're not going to look great after that either. Like, that was my response every time. Like I was like, they're like, well, it doesn't look cute. And I was like, neither does you when you're brain dead. Like, that's it. Right. Like, so just get a helmet. That's all I say. Like, screw whatever else. Like, just get a helmet, get a bike, and just go.
Yeah. All right. So I think this is a good segue into the topic for the day. I'll set the tone a little bit and go off of the first article. So today we're going to talk about beginner advice or advice for a new cyclist. And looking at these two articles has made me really think about it lately. And I think one of the big things if you're completely new to cycling that you may not be aware of, is that cycling is actually kind of fractured. There's lots of silos. Are you a mountain biker? Are you gravel cyclist? Are you urban commuter? Are you fixie rider? Are you a roadie? And don't feel like you have to kind of pigeonhole yourself right away or actually at any point. A lot of the message in my on my channel is things aren't a binary decision. You can occupy multiple spaces, like different types of riding, borrow from both road and from mountain to kind of make a style that's your own. So don't feel like you have to identify as I'm a roadie right away. It could be that all you want to do is just putter around the block with your kids, and that's perfectly fine if that's all you ever want to do. There's not kind of this graduation ceremony into other levels of cycling, except for party pace.
That's it. Shameless plug. Shameless.
There's no graduation for that.
Right. But other than that, I think that's one thing. Talk about being too enthusiastic. I think a lot of people that are like deep into in the sport aspect assume that everyone, what they want to do eventually is get into the sports side. But I think it's a better, especially at this stage with the number of cyclists, to just kind of meet them where they are. And if all they want to do is just ride slow and around the block, then that's fine too. So, so anything to add, or should we move on to Mike and the first things you should buy after you buy a bike?
I think that the biggest, actually this happened yesterday. Me and my buddy Mario went on for a ride, and there was a guy on the river trail in like he was on an e-bike, but essentially it was like a throttle e-bike, but whatever. Dude was just living his best life with a child trailer behind him, with a generator and a PA speaker bumping beats, and I was just like, dude, I like blew my mind. We passed him going the opposite way, and I was like, this dude's my fucking hero. Like, this is like amazing. And so we're riding past him. We turn around, we're coming back, and there's a bridge crossing, and we see him on there, and we both talked to him for like a quick second, like while like coasting by, and he's like, oh yeah. He's like, I need the generator to run the boombox. But he's on an e-bike, but he's got a gas-powered generator in his trailer to run the speaker, because it was so big. It was literally like a full size like
a house speaker.
No, it was bigger than that. It was literally like a 15 with like a little tweeter. Like it had to be, I don't know, 18 to 20 inches tall. I know that's not a metric for everybody else, but like it was big. It was like a big time thing. It literally was the size of a small child, big dog, like in his trailer. And then he had his buddy that rolled up after on like an e-bike that looked like a motorcycle. And I was like, you guys are doing it right. That is amazing. And they're just like bumping beats, just like cruising, just whatever, it was great. And I was like, this is the kind of stuff where I'm like, you know what? I'm dying right now. This headwind is crazy. I'm trying to get home at a decent pace. This dude's chilling, listen to like his favorite Led Zeppelin album on his like PA speaker. It was great. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I just did a video today on the title was, perfect bikes are boring. Kind of in celebration and recognition of all the bike hackery that people do, and that kind of a purely matchy group set where everything is going to works is a little bit dull compared to some of the stuff that you do, that we all do on our channels.
I agree. But there can certainly be some times where you're like, this is going to work. Doesn't work. That sucks. That was expensive. That was an expensive thing to try.
Yeah.
No, I'm literally looking for like a Frankenstein bike option to like do that kind of stuff with. Like that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, Mike, after buying the bike, a helmet, what other kind of accessories should people consider?
I always say this to anybody when I worked at a shop in any capacity, either sales or management, any kind of bike short or whatever is going to be your best thing to spend the money on, because it's going to make everything more comfortable. I tell everybody this, like, they're like, oh, I don't like my seat. Okay, well, do you have a pair of bike shorts? Well, no, I'm riding it in, if it was, yoga pants or jeans or shorts or swim trunks, whatever it was. I'd hear the gamut of it. I would always say, buy a good pair of bike shorts, spend the money there, because that's going to make every saddle feel more comfortable, because getting a new bike, you're going to be sore no matter what. If I don't ride for 2 or 3 weeks, like, I'm sore on my saddle, even though I know I love it. So buy a good pair of bike shorts first. That's going to, after the first, I'd say 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how often you ride, you're going to figure out if that saddle actually doesn't fit you well. But a good pair of bike shorts is still going to make the next seat potentially feel better. And that's really all you got to spend the real money on. A good helmet, good pair of bike shorts. You don't need to buy an expensive jersey or anything else. Like, yes, your t-shirts work. If you sweat a lot, will they stay a little wetter longer? Potentially, yes, but you can get away with it. But like, your butt's still going to hurt. Like, you might as well get a pair of bike shorts. You know, do you need carbon cages? No.
You can be sweaty on top if your butt hurts,
Right.
and it's kind of like game over.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So the game changer is like a good chamois. So spend the money there, save it everywhere else, and then as you ride more, you slowly upgrade. And the cool thing with that, when I tell people, is depending on their admirations and what they want to do with the bike, there are certain things that are worth doing and certain things that aren't. So if you do talk with either close friends that ride a lot or a good bike shop with good employees, they're going to help you out with that. But realistically, a good helmet, a good pair of chamois, you can put a bottle cage on there so you can carry water or beer or whatever you want, but carry liquid with you. And then get a flat repair kit, get your standard multi-tool, and all that kind of stuff. Because even I tell people this every single time I sold one. Oh, I don't know how to change a flat. Okay, well, fine. But if you are stranded on the side of the road and somebody rides by, and hopefully they're doing what we're suggesting, and I am, of saying hey, you good? I might not have your tube size, but I'm totally fine with helping you change your tube out, And right. I've done that a handful of times and it's been great. So you just want to have the tools on you, because now it's a little different than when I was starting at the bike shop where there's Uber now or Lyft or whatever. But I think that's really where have the supplies so you can fix whatever, even if you personally cannot do it, have it with you so that somebody who's riding with you or a stranger may be able to help you out.
Yeah. So Alex here asked a question, and I've always been curious about this too. What's the real difference between a road or mountain bike helmet?
Well, most mountain bike helmets nowadays will have some lower head back protection. A lot of them are starting to kind of go full round. They'll kind of give some protection here as well. But that's kind of the biggest difference. Some of them will have visors, others don't. A road and cross country helmet, in my opinion, interchangeable. Would be the same. If you took a cross country mountain bike racer off a bike and put them beside a road racer, the build and the way that they look dressed to race would look very similar besides shoes. So mountain biking, the idea is more protection for the back of the head. If you're gonna hit the back of your head. Ventilation on a road helmet, I think, would probably be better. Where a mountain helmet, not so much. If you were to ask me as a beginner, you're buying any bike and you're like, what helmet should I get? Always get a road helmet. Because I only own a road helmet, and even on my when I owned an enduro bike, I never looked out of place or weird on my enduro bike with my road helmet on. No one was ever like, oh, you look weird. Where one of the heckles we do at Cyclocross Nationals is whenever anybody has a visor mountain bike helmet on, we're yelling visor,
How much should someone expect to spend on a decent helmet?
Canadian or US?
US. Come on, Eric.
I don't know.
1 million Canadian, $60 US.
60, yeah, I would say $60 makes sense, doesn't it?
60 to 80, I think, is going to get you a decent helmet. I think for me, the big difference for most people that I tell them with mountain versus road too is because it is lower in the back, your head position is different. If you're on a mountain bike, you're very upright. But if
Yeah.
you're on a road, you're like this, and like obviously I can like that, and so
Right.
it's gonna potentially sit and hit. So just like Eric said, I always suggest the same thing: buy a road helmet, and there's a lot of road helmets that come with visors.
Yep.
So you can get the visor if you want. The other thing I would say, if you don't have a visor option for a helmet you like the look of, and as I'm a big advocate of, especially if you sweat a lot, is getting a nice lightweight cycling cap, because that acts as your visor, and helps with sweat. For me, at least, it doesn't run out of my eye, like from my helmet right into my eyes. It runs
You're
to like
sweating right now, so
right. I know, like it runs to like the bill of like my cycling cap, and then like drops to the ground, which is way better than my eyeballs.
right.
So I think that
kind of like what you have behind you, right? Like
yeah,
the-
cycling cap. Yeah,
okay.
these are all like my favorites that I've saved from events or whatever. But basically, yeah, it's like here, look at this, real time.
Show and tell.
So you have your bill that'll stick out, and here you go, full try on, and
nice.
so basically this is going to be under your helmet. This usually for people who sweat a lot, this is going to absorb the sweat and drip it out here instead of right into your eyes. The other thing is, if you need a visor, you have one because it's built here.
Right.
You can flip them up, depending on your helmet fit. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, some are great.
That's really where that's beneficial. So again, you can take a road helmet and add a visor to it with a cycling cap.
Just make sure
so
it's
that's
lightweight for
and there's different thicknesses of some. Some are more breathable than others. So that's something that you can always customize as far as like if you need it or you don't, you can take it on or off. But I always recommend too, like if you can, for any new riders, not to get too delved into it, is if you can get a helmet with MIPS. Giro has a great affordable helmet. I believe it's a sub $100 helmet with MIPS.
Wait, with NIPS or MIPS?
MIPS.
MIPS.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is MIPS for those that may not be
So
familiar?
The way I explain it to be very basic is most helmet tests are basically done straight on. So when they test a helmet, the crash rating is basically if you take your helmet right upside down and you slam it on the ground, that's what they tested for. Usually when you crash, you don't go straight up and then do a 90, like a straight, like right this into the helmet, because we're not all cartoon characters. So MIPS is essentially for those like side bumps. So what basically it is depending on the brand, it's essentially like a membrane that moves within the helmet. So when you hit, the helmet shifts.
So that it doesn't grab your neck.
Impact instead of it translating right to you. Because if you're strapped into a helmet and it's right on there and you're cranked in or whatever, when you hit, everything gets pushed into you.
Right.
All that does is it takes some of that initial inertia and shifts it into the helmet to absorb it before it hits your cranium, essentially. So if you can do that.
How much more expensive are MIPS?
$20 to $40, depends on the technology and the helmet. Some are very advanced, and some are very basic, but it's usually worth it. And I tell people who are like, oh, well, I don't race or I don't do any crazy rides. Well, yeah, but you're still if you're gonna hit the ground, you're gonna hit the ground like anybody else. Like I recently crashed trying to hop this curb that I thought I could, and I timed it wrong and like hurt my wrist and like had to wear a brace the other day because like it didn't feel good. Like, and I luckily didn't hit my head on the ground, but I was going 2 miles an hour. It wasn't, but you never know. But it's better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to like your brain, but that's just
the only time I cracked a helmet, it's so dumb. We were riding through somewhere in Orange County, like an outdoor mall, and had like kind of marbled outdoor flooring, and it was wet, and I was going like 5 miles an hour, and the bike just went under. And that's the only time I cracked my helmet, was like riding, through the parking lot of a mall.
Exactly.
So you never know. You never know. The ground doesn't care if you're racing or not. It's hard.
I had the same thing when I cracked one of mine, and I saved it just to be a reminder. It's literally in my place. I was going not fast. I was doing a gravel like mountain ride with some friends, not going crazy, but just like it was loose and sandy. My front wheel washed out, and I smacked my head and literally could feel it to where like the left side of my helmet felt super tight, and I pulled it off and I couldn't put it back on. And like, so it's just thing is like, I wasn't going super fast, but it doesn't take much to hit your head on the ground pretty hard.
Yeah, I think another thing that I wish I would ride, or I should remember to ride more with are gloves. I think especially as a new rider, if you're apt to eat it, as you fall down, your first instinct is to like put your hand out, right? And I've done that a couple times, and having gloves has definitely saved some skin on my hands.
The palms, yeah.
Yeah,
I hate gloves, but I
you
agree.
hate
That
gloves.
I can't stand them. I don't like wearing them at all. But
I only do
You're
it
right.
if it's a gravel ride or like a really aggressive like trail. I'll wear them mainly for like knuckle protection. For like if it's overgrown or I've never been there before, I'll wear them just because like there's a trail we rode the other weekend like camping, and it was so overgrown and stuff's like smacking you like everywhere. And then you get like the thorny bushes and stuff
Right.
where like having the gloves on with like knuckle protection and like my long socks. It's the only time that actually helps. Is like when you're getting smacked with stuff.
Right.
But that's and like I try not to tumble. And I think if I'm doing a trail that I think I'm going to, like I'm going to go real slow. But gloves are always something that I'll usually keep in a pocket or a bag or something just to have either way. But yeah.
So YouTube comments. If you guys have any questions
Yeah,
for
exactly.
experts, let us know in the
Loosely quoted.
Right.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments below. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We've got close to 100 people in the YouTube chat here, so would love to know where everyone's watching from, and if you guys have any other questions. What else? So helmet, gloves, optional. I think they're good. Anything else?
Your repair kit.
Shorts. Okay, repair kit. So even if you don't know how to use it yourself, chances are if you're riding in the high traffic area, someone should.
Someone can help. Like someone can absolutely help. I mean, I think further to looking at anything at all, and not taking vanity too much into consideration, because vanity can get expensive. But I think to stick with something, or at least to have the drive to want to go do it, you have to feel good and feel like you look good. It doesn't need to be everybody's opinion, but like you need to enjoy what it is you own, bike wise or accessory wise. And I don't think that anyone new into riding or anyone who rides should ever be ashamed or shamed for it. Like that. For anyone to say that they haven't done something to their bike to be more excited about it, I think would be a lie.
Oh yeah.
And I think more people need to own that and be okay with it, but like not shame someone else for having their opinion of their favorite, bike or accessory or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. If you're at the bike shop and you see a hamburger shaped bike bell and you need that, get it and put it on your bike, so you're more excited to like ring that thing when you're passing somebody. Or not.
Like, I like going out and like it would be like one of those like the squeaky ones that's like a that's what I picture immediately. And I'm like, I want to go ride around on trails and just honk that thing for
it's the best
for like an hour, and that could be
Eric's gonna have to say that one more time because you did the whole like Matrix freeze on that. Go ahead.
If I don't know, if you go ride your bike because of a funny horn bell, I think that's funny. I don't know.
Oh no, my one of my favorites was wearing my Pokemon jersey with my Pokeball socks on a 100-mile like LA charity ride, and I was behind this dude that was like super serious on his like Canyon Arrow Road with his like 88 millimeter deep V's, again charity ride, and like he just got mad because I was like holding onto his wheel, but that was like my favorite part. Like I was stoked to just like ride that combo, like it made me was like, yeah, I want to do this. So those are the best moments.
Have you guys ever been personally shamed for doing something supposedly wrong on your bike?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah. Wait, like what?
Your disc brake on your track bike?
Well, I mean, most people give me a really hard time about slamming stems.
Yeah.
like they don't think that I take into consideration that I don't have the flexibility and that I haven't been doing it forever. Like every bike is slammed. There probably will be a time in my life that I can't do it, but I'm 28. Like, give me another, 10 to 15 years to like lose my flexibility. Then maybe I'll start bringing stuff up a little bit. But it's like, why wouldn't I own that? Like, there's two reasons. I love the way it looks every time I look at one of my like slammed, fast-looking bikes. Like, I love that, and I'm like, I want to go ride that right now.
Right.
Like, there's times where like I'll even just be in the shed looking at one of my like fast bikes just for like half an hour, and I'm like drooling. I'm like, that is so cool. Like, man,
I had a girlfriend that got mad at me when I did that once. It was bad.
Just looked at a bike and drooled.
No, I literally, it was my steel like all road like gravel bike that I have like custom made like Varco cycle build, like just had painted it like it was just, I rode to her place. I like set it in the room or whatever, and she was talking to me watching TV, and I was like looking at her. She goes, "You don't look to me like that. You don't look at me like that." And I was like, but she doesn't talk back. Like,
yeah. You don't have a slam stem.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I was like, but it looks so good. Like, just look at it. Like, it was bad. It was that caused an argument, but it was fine. But that was I've totally done the same thing. That's why like my Cobalt, like Warhawk, like monster gravel build, I looked at like the head tube length and everything else. I'm like, oh, I can totally run that slammed instead of my TCX, which I need like a spacer for.
Yeah,
I knew my like and everything. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, it's worth it. Like I tell everyone, like, get a gravel bike because you can slam it. It's worth it. Like,
so Eric, when are the Slam Dat stickers coming out?
The Slam Dat. Oh shit.
That's a really good idea.
But he's also gonna get sued. But it's fine. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, like I guess I feel a little bit bad going after Slam That stem a little bit. But no, that's a good idea. I'm going to make them, and if I get sued, I get sued. Whatever.
Hey, we've all been there. I've been there personally, so I know what it's all about. Give you my tips. Yeah.
I get shamed for the opposite thing, for having too much steer tube, and also like I was, because half the time when I make videos, like people don't realize like I'm not a very good mechanic and doing things as quickly as possible and filming it at the same time so I can have a video out later that day. So I missed some of the details, like lining up the stem cap exactly, or covering that metal band that the brifter connects with the tape, and all those little things just add up. It's like, okay, I get it.
Like, leave me alone about the nitpicky things that you saw and you felt needed to be in the comments.
Yeah, like I'll do this, it'll take me several weeks to do a video, and hours to edit it, and then the only thing they pick out is like, oh, your tire valve didn't line up with the valve didn't line up with the tire.
Logo.
Like, why do I do that?
Well, when Russ is reviewing like his 47th bike of the week, like he's like, it's fine. Like, just put it on there. Like, it's a bolt tight, I'm fine with it. Like,
yeah. How about you, Mike? What have people given you crap about on your bike?
Oh, it's been the gamut of things. It's usually like the matchy, because like I have like a low key like industrial design background. By low key, I mean like I paid a lot of money to have a bachelor's degree in industrial design. It's fine. But like my bolts match like to like the road shoes that I have that are Giros that are the 1 year. Oh, I have to get them. Hang on. This is going to be, we're doing it live. 1 second.
Right. Yeah.
There was a time that you said you couldn't go just grab products like I could. I've never even done this.
Like, look at this.
Nice.
Like that matches the colorway for the bike that I have. And then I mismatched it. But I mean like the knit, like it's literally all the colors.
Oh,
they're
dope.
the Giro knits, but they made this for 1 year. I worked at the shop at the time, called my rep, and I was like, I don't know what I have to do and who you have to call and what shop has these, but you have to find me a set in 44. Like, doesn't matter. And I sent him like a picture of my bike. He goes, yeah, you really need these. And so I called around for a long time. Again, just because literally the entire colorway was too perfect.
How do those fit? Is there, like, I always have a problem with bike shoes being too tight. Does a knit, is it more expandable?
It does. It's depends on your foot structure is what I always tell people. Like with knit, I have a very high like arch, so I have very high insoles in here. The knit is good and bad for certain things. So the good is it does really conform around a weird foot shape, but it doesn't offer as much support in the upper.
Okay.
So depending on how you pedal, it sometimes like for my, I have broken my left foot. And I have like a steel wire around my fifth metatarsal bone there. So like that foot will tend to hurt more. The shape of the shoe feels good, but the problem is like after a while, like your foot kind of begs for support to where like the knit doesn't feel great on that foot after, I don't know, hour 2-ish.
Yep.
To where I just did like, so I did like a 6-hour ride on road, but with my mountain pedals, my mountain Giro shoes, which I have, which are a standard, like kind of half knit, half synthetic, BOA style shoe that I did a review on road just to see like, am I going to feel the difference? Actually, yeah, the shoe structure and support actually did feel slightly better. Right. So yeah, but the other thing is these breathe like nobody's business. So like on a hot day, never have any problems.
They look comfy.
They're super comfy. They breathe really well, but the opposite is like, even in California, granted, it is not Russ cold or Eric cold. They do like let a lot of air through. So you either have to wear like very thick socks or do shoe covers a lot sooner than you would probably in anything else.
Right. Okay. So got a little bit off the rails. Eric, you're going to talk about kind of analysis paralysis of the new bike buyer and what they should do. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's pretty similar to the last point I made before we talked about being shamed. But I think when you're at a shop or if you're looking online and you are unsure of what it is that you want to get, and I think I did bring this up before, but I think there is a tendency to not make a decision out of the fear of being wrong. And I think you should omit that completely. Like when you're a new rider, like at this time, where a lot of people are buying bikes and you're like, I don't know, like what I really, or like, you know, we all get into this, but like, I really like the way that bike looks over there. Okay. Forget all the other stuff that you're concerned about. Get that bike over there. And it's funny because Mike and I, we don't agree on this, I will say. But I think that you need to make a decision so you can start riding to find out if the thing that you thought you wanted to do 6 months or a year from now truly ends up being that thing.
For sure.
Where I know, Mike, you're like, well, why don't you just buy the thing you want right now?
Well, no, I think mine is buy a foundation. And it depends on the person that's coming in that I'm talking to as a owner or seller. Is if they're already talking about upgrades when I'm having that initial conversation with them, I'm going to tell them like it's cheaper to buy it now.
I would agree with
thing,
that. Yes.
Right? So that's what I'm saying. So if some guy comes in like, oh yeah, well I've heard Ultegra is great, but I can only spend X amount of dollars today. Fine, no big deal, go for it. But if you want to come like, and it depends on the shop and the employee. Because for me, especially when I was managing, I wanted that customer relationship because like I wanted them to be like, this is your shop. I want that experience for you. I'm going to tell you the right thing to do, which is if you can't afford it now or make it or finance it or whatever now, it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run to afford you other things later in the line you might think you want, like wheels or anything else. If somebody's like, I want to get into riding, all I want to do is for basic fitness, and I may or may not want to do this charity ride later this year because my buddy wants to ride. Like we've never done more than 20 miles. So we want to do 50 miles in 6 months. Great. Buy this bike that you can afford. Here's, the difference for these models and why, my explanation of why it's worth X amount more money and what I would recommend to go with. But just go ride, so I think it's really dependent on the person, and that really depends on the employee that you're working with. If you are going to a bike shop And that's really the value of going to a bike shop, is having those discussions. And yes, sometimes people suck. Sometimes people are not going to give you the time of day, because you're not buying the $10,000 road bike and you want the $1,000 aluminum, like, you know, or $500 aluminum hybrid or entry-level road bike, whatever it is. That's really where, like, you just got to be real with, like, honest with yourself. Like, I wish I could, you know, be this fast or do these things, but realistically, I know where I'm at. Like, it's just perspective for yourself and what your real admirations are. Do you really think you're going to go through with this 100-mile century ride you want to do in a couple months? Well, sure. That's going to be worth buying this bike for. Do you want to go do Dirty Kansas this year? Sure. It's worth buying a little bit nicer bike for that, because it's a lot more demanding. But if you think that realistically your Dirty Kansas is like your backyard, then just get this. Like, that's, you know, like, just be real with yourself, I think, before you go into the shop.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree that, I think I agree with both of you guys. Like, I think, you know, you can't not make a decision to kind of figure out what it is you like. Another kind of approach would be, if, you know, you don't know if you should invest in the expensive version of the thing, is try to get the cheapest possible of the thing, just to kind of dabble your toes, although that might color your experience. There's also something to be said about buying a bike that's a little bit nicer than what you feel like you deserve at the moment, but it would inspire you to ride more, and really get into it.
Yeah.
I know I do that with, I know I do that with, like, camera gear. Like, I'll buy, you know, some fancy whiz bang thing, and in my head it's like, okay, I've made this investment, I'm gonna effing use it, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you know, I guess that's a good perspective. I've never experienced that. Like, like, having not having my motivation has always been sort of the opposite. So it's hard for me to sympathize with someone who might look at it that way, because I've always been like, I don't have any money. I want to do the most I can with, like, the least, like, amount possible. Like, I'm going to squeeze more out of this $100 investment than, like, anyone ever has.
Right.
And you know, and isn't that that's my channel, really?
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of like with that, and granted, this isn't us, but, like, it's like with mountain biking. This is what I tell people. It's the same kind of mantra of, if you can buy a bike that you're gonna grow into, the bike can be more capable than you are, which is fine. That's going to give you the safety net, and you're going to grow towards that. With mountain, that's, you know, I think is the easiest example, and the only reason I say it is because if someone's like, oh, well, you know, I like going to Big Bear, or like going to whatever, you know, downhill trail. Great. I ask them, how often do you go? If they say, oh, like every, like, 6-7 months. Okay, well, I was like, what kind of trails do you live by? Oh, it's this and that. Okay, well, you can do a cross country or a trail bike. You don't need an enduro bike for that. You can buy the bike that's suited for your trails, and then go either rent, like, for the day when you go every 6 months to the, you know, the downhill trail, or, you know, or whatever. But it's not worth it. Buy a bike that you're going to enjoy for what you're doing, you know. And I think that's the same thing with road or gravel or anything else, or anything in between. This is what you're really going to do. Do you love the look of, like, the race aero frames, but you haven't ridden ever? Should you buy an endurance bike with a little more tire clearance and comfort? Probably. Like, you know, like, is it going to hurt your, you know, like, is it going to hurt you in the long run? Probably not. You're just going to be able to slam the thing more, like, sooner than you would with your race bike. So, you know, and then you can buy that slammed at stem in 6 months, you know, like, sticker. So it's fine. Yeah.
So here's a quick question. Let's wrap up with this and also tie it into online. So Emerson asks, you know, would you recommend new cyclists go secondhand? And we were talking before the show started about, you know, the various merits of purchasing a new bike online versus going to the store. So let's look at this one first. So, do cyclists secondhand, or are they better served going to a bike shop?
I think they are probably better going to a shop. Problem with secondhand, especially if you're not sure necessarily what you're looking at, it's easy to get dazzled by something that might look fancy, but you're like, it's easy to tell if a derailleur isn't working right, but it's not easy as a beginner, and especially a non-mechanic, to know if a chainring cassette is worn out completely. It's hard to tell if shifters are working okay, but like the certain generations of Shimano shifters for I'm going to use Rode for example, were really bad for eating the heads of shift cables. Like they would just grab them and break them literally right there.
All right.
And then they'd be caught in the lever, and you'd think that the lever was like broken and you would never get to use it again. But you can feel that friction. You're like, something bad's about to happen. You know, this maintenance should probably be done. Some people say they've done good maintenance on it, but I am weary of people who say freshly tuned and greased. I'm like, what did you grease?
Yeah.
Because like
it's only a few things you actually grease on a bike.
Yeah,
very few.
Like usually the grease is there from the manufacturer or from assembly. What did you grease?
Right. So I think what you're saying is that they're like use is a good option, but you have maybe not
to know stuff.
You have to know stuff. So what you lack in budget, you have to make up for in knowledge.
Correct.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Totally.
Like the amount of, I always felt so bad for the people who came in to the shop when I worked there before. And like people still reach out to me for, especially now, they want me to work on their bikes and I have no interest in working on people's bikes. But that like, okay, I spent $250 on this. Good deal. Bring it into the shop only to be like totally gutted when I'm like, you need a chain cassette, chain rings. Your bike isn't like, for lack of a better term, your bike is not nice enough to buy new chain rings for. So you need a new crank. And I pulled your crank off. Ooh, your bottom bracket's gone. You need a bottom bracket. While we're here, like, let's do cables and heads. Boom! I just came up with like a $400 bill, right? And they're like, well, Jesus, I bought this bike for $250. And I go, I have a $550 bike over there that's brand new.
Right.
And they'll go, well, we may as well just do this work. And then they're not happy with it. And, and sometimes the finish of the bike is not good anymore. And they're like, well, if they were able to look past that because they got such a good deal.
$250. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And now they're like, well, I just spent $400 on maintenance and it looks like garbage compared to that thing over there. And the more you dig into them, you might find more stuff. And it's easy to be okay with crap on your own bike, but it is hard to do that for someone else.
Right.
And then you got to worry about be sympathetic to the guy who's working on your bike. He doesn't want you to leave without touching a part of it that they know is wrong. And you say no, possibly, and then leave and still have a bad experience. And you're like, oh my God, you didn't let me do that. I understand it was expensive.
Right.
Sometimes people get really good deals though. That was not as often as ones where they're like, generally there's a look of disappointment.
I've gotten crazy deals that are great. And I've had customers come in, dude came in with like new old stock, like Dura-Ace, like AX group set. He's like, I just want to know what this is roughly worth. I'm like, and it was like in the box. Right. He's like, yeah, I paid like $50 for it. It came in like a trade. And I'm like, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, I'll give you like $80 for it. And he's like, no. Like, I'm put it on eBay. And I'm like, and like, but it was like literally one of those, like, I felt like I was going to be on one of those, like, what is it, Storage Wars episodes, like that's what I felt like. And I was like, where are the cameras at? But anyways, like, no, there are some good deals out there. There are legitimate, and I'll even see them and either buy them for myself or send them to friends who are looking for parts or bikes. But yeah, most of the time, especially for newer riders, if you don't have a cycling friend who is mechanically inclined and has some kind of knowledge or tool set, you're typically going to be better off buying a new bike. Because there are many of times where my buddy's like, oh, this, whatever. I'm like, you know what? I have an old washer from this headset that'll totally work for that I saved, and it's in my tool shed in the third bin in the back corner that'll totally fix your problem. And I've been saving it for 47 years. And, like now it'll actually be good for you. Like help. Don't worry about it, Eric. Math is irrelevant. So no, it's just like I've been saving it. And like I have random parts in there. I think I have random shift cable length. I'm like, I'm never going to use this, but someone's going to come over and they're going to need it. So it's, unless you have a friend like that, your bike shop and a new bike with new cables, new housing, and them typically going to offer a free tune-up and all these things that, again, if you don't have anybody that's capable or good at it, it's going to be very beneficial at the end of the year. I tell people to always look at a bike like maintenance or bike ownership like a car.
All right.
There's initial cost and there's maintenance. So look at the 12-month of it. You're going to need a tune-up. You're going to need some kind of, touch-up or whatever else. If you're buying a used bike, you're going to be paying for that full pop, to where, yes, that bike might be $250. And, yeah, it might not need any maintenance initially. But all that stuff is going to add up by the end of the year with potentially worn-out stuff because it is obviously a used bike, so it's going to have some worn parts to where is it really worth that in the end of the day when you still are just replacing a bunch of used old stuff instead of having the brand new version and updated version because it's current tech, in the bike.
Right. So we're at the hour and 11 mark and there's still 95 people in the room. So
hey,
if you're liking this content, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and we'll take it home with one last thing. And that is, because of COVID, lots of bike shops, brick and mortar shops are just simply out of bikes. So it seems like there's this moment for lots of direct to consumer brands. What are your thoughts for whether a new cyclist should get one of those direct to consumer bikes?
I don't think you should be afraid of it. It is a new bike. It will be shipped to you not assembled. So that is certainly a consideration. I think most bike shops are starting to be less nose turning. Like they don't turn their nose to putting together a bike bought online as much anymore. I know I used to, I'm not going to say I scoffed at them when I would build them at the shop, but I certainly had like a somewhat negative connotation towards them. I like to think that maybe I would have less of that now, but I think it's more commonplace. You have to consider Norco, Felt, Trek. I think a few of them, they're all doing direct to consumer, but it has to ship to the bike shop first.
They call it like an omni bike shop, essentially, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
omni channel. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah. So
anybody from that transaction?
They do. Yeah. Yeah. Actually.
Yeah. So when I worked at
Colin about that, he said he got like 5% of the sale or something like that. Like it might have been more. But he said it. He was like, "Man, that was awesome! Like I didn't have to talk to the guy about his $5,500 mountain bike. I didn't have to sell him on it. I didn't have to size him, and none of it's my problem unless it's a warranty stuff." He's like, "It was awesome. They just sent me. They're like, here's the profit for it."
Right.
And he was like,
"Yeah, like I worked at a Giant dealer. They're really cool about that too. Is like if you order a Giant online, you can buy the bike, and it'll tell you what shop has that in stock closest to you, and so that bike will get full profit margin on that bike, and it'll be built, and then they will email you. So as a dealer, I would just be in there. Mark is like, yes, I've received this. So the person's like, hey, I'm aware of your order, and then I would check it when it was done, and then they would get a follow-up email saying like, hey, your bike is ready for pickup.
Cool.
So they would just come in, bike's paid for, literally just like roll it to you, verify your ID, done. Like that was it. Yeah, that was it. And it was great. Now, granted, 99% of them would come into the bike shop and after the first thing, be like, oh, my bike ready? Like, but hey, got them into the shop. We'd expose them to everything. We'd tell them about everything else. like, hey, if you read the email, like this is what we're doing. But that was great, and it supported local business, you know. But the big thing is, with cycling, there's so much that you have to know that you really do need like a good quality shop you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that can give you that like insight to what is really needed. You know, honestly.
But I think you're still. I still think there's a lot of, you know, we just kind of named a lot of big brands again, but there's still all the direct to consumer, non-bike shop carried bikes that are good.
Yes. No, it's not that they're not good. It just, if you're buying them, I think you need to factor in that is going to cost, there is an initial cost to build and then to maintain that for the first year, I'd say. That's why I tell people, like, if you're going to buy a bike online, you're going to spend between $50 to $100 at a bike shop, depending on the level of assembly that the bike is going to come into. And then you're probably going to have at least one $50 to $100 service or equivalent level of in that first 12 months. So factor that into the direct-to-consumer cost, because if you don't have any bike tools or any knowledge on how to repair stuff or look at stuff, that rough $100 to $200 like budget to add into the initial cost is really something to think about, because a lot of people don't, you know.
Unless you want to learn all that on your own,
right.
Which you can do.
And then, but if you invest in the tools, that's $40 to $60, and if you do it right,
more.
you know, and then, you know, that's a big thing. Russ, I think you mentioned that, like, if you do it right, you know, like, so I think that's really where it really boils down. Yes, if you buy a bike and you invest $50 into basic bike maintenance parts, can you have most of the tools minus like hydraulic brake bleed kits? Totally. Are you gonna nail it?
Time to learn, you know.
Yes,
and how much you value your time, and whose YouTube channel you watch. It could be
right,
you know, a shit show.
Or when you watch ACN and you see the global, you know, fruition of all this. Yeah.
Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna take it home here. Hopefully, we didn't make it too complicated. If you're a new cyclist and watching us today, so basically, I think we're all happy that, you know, there are a ton of cyclists or a ton of people getting bikes and getting into the hobby of the sport, whatever you want to interface with. And, you know, we've got resources on all our individual channels. I think all our channels do a pretty good job with serving kind of new and beginner cyclists, you know.
Like my idea has always been to just get people excited. I don't want to teach anybody, but I like always just be excited to go ride what you have.
So with all that said, if you guys haven't subscribed to our individual channels, please do. The links are going to be in the description below. And not quite sure what we're going to talk about next week yet. I'm sure there will be some new to discuss. But any last words before we sign off? Speechless.
Yeah. It was that good. It was that good.
Yep.
All right. Well, until next time, guys. See you next week and keep riding.